functions that it all like wave, it goes away. So it's good that we have thought of having it after 4 or 5 days of the MSME day, so that we could talk, elaborate, and have some deliberation on what needs to be done for MSME. There are various figures which come up usually, but some figures which I have which are very different than what everybody must be having, and which are nearly very good if you see about MSME sector, and many people don't know these figures also. And because what government says figures and what even in RBI MSME board I am there, so we also discuss there and many figures are discussed. But I have some figures with, of course, 1.3 billion Indian dreams that we all talk about. Everybody thinks of becoming an entrepreneur, and one should become an entrepreneur because Indians are born entrepreneurs. It's very difficult to create entrepreneur, but Indians are born entrepreneurs, and every small man, every nook and corner can do something small and big and work on it. Instead of under any odd circumstances, which I think as a banker, as a logistic, and as a startup supporter, all you must be, and Preeti Syal from Niti Ayog. Of course, sorry, I didn't welcome all the speakers. Mr. Jacob Adin Kumar, Mr. S. Prakash, Preeti Syal from Niti Ayog, Mr. Tully, General Manager, Bank of Credit. Of course, all are with great experience in their own field. If I elaborate about them, everybody has a good experience of more than number of years. Preeti may only the young one who must be having only experience of decade, but all others we have 2-3 decades experience in entrepreneurs side or financial side or whatever you call it about. So 1.3 billion dreams and 6.3 million enterprises in India. 63 million enterprises in India. 11.7 million GST registration. 4.8 million Udyog Aadhaar registration. 70,000 products registration. 7,000 startups which are working and which are there. 6,000 services. 92% share in employment of MSME. If we could take all these services and startups and everything, 45% share in manufacturing, 8% contribution to the national GDP. So, in the second largest employment generation in building India. So, employment generation, exports, we all talk about small scale, and these are the figures which are little different than what figures we have from ministry and other things. And these are figures which government should know and how to go about MSME and how to support MSME. It's very, I have seen at various stages that MSMEs are, good policies come up, good speech is given from Prime Minister to every level. But the implementation and it does not percolate at the operating level to support MSME. I had requested various times that SIDBI should be made full-fledged MSME bank, which has not happened till today, because SIDBI should have branches across the country for MSME. When we started SIDBI, since then I have been talking about that. Because I was on the board of SIDBI for 8 years or 10 years, and we have been propagating that SIDBI should come out with MSME bank exclusively. We did have some thoughts, and RBI did once told all banks to open up MSME specialized branches. But you know, in the large branches, when you have MSME branch, they do not get much of support and way they should be treated. Because all said and done, they pass through a lot of hard times. And it's very easy to give a loan to a large industry than to give it to small scale. Because if you have to give 100 crores in MSME, you will have to give to 1,000 companies. Whereas in large industry, you can give to one company, so you have to have one file only. That's, you know, sometimes the thinking goes that in MSME, you have to work hard for them. But that is, you should know that you are building country, you are not only talking about MSME. Of course, in services, digital, healthcare, pharma, engineering, hand tools, all these sectors across, there are more than 10,000 products which are manufactured in MSME. And I think those is to be seen if you go to villages and all. I think MSME minister or MSME secretary, before he takes over the charge, I told once in a meeting in the MSME board that he should go around and see in MSME company itself and look at the work, how it happens. Then you will make the law which is more conducive to MSME. We have been talking about doing away with labor laws for MSME since Mr. Narasimha Rao's time. And Narasimha Rao, that time, as a Prime Minister, wrote a letter to all the state governments. He would do away with the labor laws. When he came out with the Delayed Payment Act at Vigyan Bhavan meeting of MSME body announced. So till date, we have not seen that most of the state governments have responded. Of course, some regulations have gone in the labor, and for large sector, of course, the labor laws and all the new code has come up. That code is now again delayed for some reasons, but that all needs to be worked out. Of course, United Nations have been kind enough to declare 27 June as MSME Day. We all celebrate and we all are talking about MSME, but I feel that more concentration is required on MSME at every level, especially the government needs to come out with wholehearted support to MSME, because timely and adequate finance is the main problem of MSME. Besides other things, the marketing preferences now, government is thinking of giving to MSME. In some sectors they have given, some sectors they are planning. But that 15% earlier preferential we had in DDSND for MSME, in some sectors we have got now, but not in all sectors. So across the PSU and all, world over, if you see, there are 90% MSME units world over. Most of the countries have a different SBA Act, MSME Act, and they really support MSME because they feel that small business and MSME are key to employment. And biggest employment generation, even exports. We do more than 40-45 exports. If we take James and Jewelry, it is more than 65% or 70%. So if you go about all credibility of MSME, it's great, but different. And only one thing is MSME is not well organized, because we have number of associations whom we do recognize, number of bodies, and everybody comes out with, so everybody speaks, there is no meaning. But government can choose some bodies, like Mr. Narasimha Rao chose 16 bodies from all over the country, and he started meeting in every 3 months and 6 months as a Prime Minister. And he told Manmohan Singh, Monte Carlo and everybody kindly meet them. That's where they started, and we used to have pre-budget meeting for MSME, which has again stopped. After he went, since 1997, I didn't see anything. But what I feel is, we had a lot of various committees he had set up. Upgradation Technology Committee for MSME, the Rules and Regulation Committee for MSME under Ministry of MSME. But all those have now not, they don't see the light of the day. So all these committees do help. In fact, we wrote to Prime Minister so many times. Why? We had a Prime Minister task force under Dr. Manmohan Singh. I was a member of that. And we have given a lot of suggestions to them. I and Mrs. Nayak, we made a lot of suggestions and a lot of papers. But those are still lying. That book has been published by the Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. But the task force, a lot of material was given then to Prabhat Kumar Committee. He was a cabinet secretary. And that Prabhat Kumar Committee report also is lying. If you just implement the last suggestions of Prabhat Kumar Committee, it will be great for MSA. So all these reports, I was member of about 5 committees of RBI. PJ Nayak, Ganguly, then SL Kapoor Committee, there are like various committees. 7 committees. Even Mr. UK Sinha Committee, we had sent recommendations. But still, PJ Nayak Committee, some recommendations are pending, which was from 1992-93. He was the Deputy Governor of RBI, and Venkatraman was the Governor, and he told that time RBI. Recently, the last board meeting of RBI, where we were there, MSME Advisory Board meeting, where it was noticed that private sector banks have given 40% loan to MSME, whereas public sector has only given 5%. So, Deputy Governor asked why it's so when the figures came up, and he said, I will find out and get back. Of course, then the COVID came and we never had any meeting in the last 1.5 years. So that's fine. But what I say is various things should be done. And for Niti Ayog, I feel you are coming out with various papers. When you come out with papers on MSME, please discuss with MSME organizations. No doubt you discuss with few. CII, FICCI, SOCM are not MSME organizations. They do interact with you, but they are not MSME organizations. They do have MSME members. And if you see in the meeting, the people who come to meet you are their executives. not the entrepreneur. So you talk to entrepreneurs who really work on the job and who are on the field. They will give you good and right suggestions. With these few words, sorry I take a lot of your time, and we hope to have a good elaborate discussion with you, and we hope MSME prospers. That's what our theme and motto is. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kalanti sir, for wonderful opening remarks. I would now invite our today's moderator, Mr. S. Prakash, who is the founder and CEO of Sea Change India. Mr. Prakash is a nationally acclaimed author, coach, master storyteller, keynote speaker, and has decades of experience. He has also written more than 10 books. He is the founder and CEO of Change India, and his organization specializes in helping SMEs and mid-sized companies to realize their cherished dreams and goals. Kindly allow me to welcome Mr. Prakash. Mr. Prakash, welcome, and I wish you to take this discussion forward.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I just would set the context based on what the chairman has already added. Having worked with MSMEs for more than 2 decades closely and helped 500 to 1,000 MSMEs to turn around pan-India. If you really look at it, MSMEs have tremendous power. The biggest challenge, as chairman said in his opening remarks, is that they're highly fragmented. And specifically the pandemic and post-pandemic issues is really hitting them very hard. Whereas some of the organized sectors, mid-cap to large companies, have deep pockets and good funding capabilities, they're able to sort of weather the storm. Even there, the withering has been pretty hard. But if you really look at MSMEs, personally, I've seen in the last 1 year, several MSMEs are literally being wiped out. They have almost closed and gone. Some of them have, whom I know at least, have even taken up jobs in bigger organizations. If you really look at some of the challenges they face, specifically in the pandemic time, which seems to not give up at all, with the second wave already creating havoc, with third wave being predicted, not being very sure. Poor sales, very poor receivables. Their average outstanding used to be about 90 to 120 days earlier. Now it has gone beyond the roof. Some of them, I have known that haven't collected their bills since last September or so. Add to this, on one side, they continue to manufacture, and specifically those who are in the manufacturing sector, they continue to pile up inventory. They keep buying raw materials, partly it's in work in progress, WIP, and partly in finished goods, but not really converting into money. Which means they are really being hit on several sides, while government is really striving hard to provide a lot of impetus. As Chairman said in his opening remark, there is maybe a gap between what is on offer and what is being taken. It has, to a great extent, resulted in impacting the confidence of the MSME entrepreneurs. I remember one of the conclave which I happened to watch virtually, where in his first term, Prime Minister Modi ji was mentioning that the challenge is not about the minds, it's about the mindsets, which is all the more applicable to MSMEs. They're pretty low on confidence today. Of course, I'm only talking about those who have been very hard taking the hit in this pandemic time. There are a few who are very smart, who have adapted to the change and have learned how to swim with the tides and ensure that they are able to float. Still, there is a lot of work that has to be done. And I'm also tracking several initiatives that the Honorable FM, Mrs. Nirmala Sitharaman, and of course, Mr. Nitin Gadkari, the MSME Minister, are really taking it boldly, I would say. On several fronts, they're working to stimulate the MSMEs and empower them to sustain and grow. Still, there is a time gap between how fast they're expected to adapt and how fast things are actually unfolding in the market space. Even in these challenging times, if you really look, opportunities are emerging on several new frontiers. they may not be able to directly compete at that level, but they can look at integrating in the forward or backward supply chain, where they can become vital cogs in ensuring that their growth is not hampered. This calls for very quick adaptation from MSMEs to make use of these different times, what is now being called as the new normal. The old mindset, the old way of doing work with IIoT 4.0 catching up very fast, European market setting 2030 as the cutoff time for IIoT 4.0, which also means globally it will come into play, moving off several industries to newer ways of operating. WFH having sort of taking a precedence over working at the factory level. Some of the youth, which is the feeder line for MSMEs, are finding it an easier route to stay away from hard work on the field. I'm not holding anything against the youth, but obviously when it's much easier to work from home and write code or do telemarketing or do some service work from where you are, it becomes much easier. There are a lot of points that we need to discuss to ensure that actually the MSME sector really becomes more resilient. It's not that it's not resilient, otherwise we wouldn't be sitting here and talking. Even in the latest figures that have been released, they have come literally number 2 in terms of contribution to the GDP. In this context, we are going to have a panel discussion based on a few questions that we have chosen, which are specifically pertaining to the MSME sector. It's my great pleasure to introduce 3 panelists, very esteemed panelists in our midst today. My privilege to introduce Ms. Preeti Syal. She's a senior specialist and director at Niti Ayog, where she works at cross sections of emerging technologies with core sectors of healthcare as well as justice and legal system. She brings a tremendous amount of knowledge and experience even at this young age. She has a master's in public policy from University of California, San Diego, and a master's in computer science from North Carolina State University. Let me introduce the next panelist who is with us today, Mr. Amit Tully, who is the General Manager of MSME Banking Division in Bank of Baroda. He is the GM MSME in banking with about 2.5 decades of work experience. He's an MBA and a CAIB with tons of work experience and about 3 years of teaching experience as well. So that brings a good experience of theory and practice to the table. He has risen to the post of GM by working through the ranks, joining at an entry level, and then through his performance, he has grown up the ranks to be where he is today. And the icing on the cake is that to date, he has handled a loan book size of about 3 trillion Indian rupees, which is something, I mean, to handle that kind of credit and do the risk analysis and all that is a tremendous amount of achievement. Welcome, Mr. Amit. The third one we have with us today is Mr. Jacob Anil Kumar. He's a marine engineer and has a MA and MBA in international business. He has certifications in customs and IATA. He's a great innovator and an entrepreneur with about 23 years of exposure in international logistics. He specializes in services pertaining to imports and exports and has a vast amount of experience in this field, specifically working with MSMEs and helping them in whatever way possible. He's currently serving as a director for an international freight and forwarding company based out of Chennai. He is also a consultant for taxation and foreign trade. With this, we'll open up to the panel discussion. Here we have structured it in 3 rounds. In first round, we would have questions going around to the 3 panelists. And in round 2, we'll again have a reverse way of doing questions. Third round, if time permits, we have 1 question to which all panelists will answer. After that, we'll open up to the Q&A where the participants can feel free to post your questions in the chat box. We'll capture it and then process it for you. There's going to be a high voltage session where some of the best chosen experts are going to be available during this event or post the event when the recording will be available for many of who are not able to watch it live now. This will be a treasure trove of knowledge and experience for you to tackle. So I'll move now with the first question, which I'm going to ask Ms. Preeti Syal. Preeti ma'am, what is your view on disruptive supply chain? How does an MSME learn and adapt to this?
Thank you, Mr. Prakash, and thank you everyone for allowing me to be a part of this very important conversation at a very difficult time, as all of you have already talked about. I think so. I think my biggest wobble when it comes to thinking in terms of this question specifically, supply chain and MSME. I look at them as two enormities that we try to superimpose on each other and try to solve a gigantic problem by bringing a lot of generalization in both of them. I mean, if you think about the MSMEs themselves, the spectrum is so wide. You have these micro enterprises which are barely 25 lakhs, and then you have these medium enterprises which are up to 10 crores. At that range in itself does not justify clubbing them together and trying to come up with policy or technology recommendations that would fit for all of them. So in that sense, I personally think that, let's say, for example, I'm a micro enterprise, a simple spreadsheet or a WhatsApp business tracker would probably be enough for me to track my own supply chain. But if I were to use the same analogy and assume a medium enterprise would be able to do the same things, let's assume that they have high frequency operations, then requiring more sophisticated solutions would probably be a way for them to go forward. So I think the right question that all of us should be asking is, should an MSME learn to adapt to supply chain disruption? And how should they evaluate that? Because it may not even apply to me as an MSME. A low-tech solution or no-tech solution is what I want to go forward with, because I am in this big club of big enterprises also, relatively big, right? So in that sense, if we scale back the question a little and think in terms of what is disruptive supply chain, most importantly, disruptive supply chains are looked in perspective of technology interventions, because supply chains by themselves are not efficient. I mean, however amount of efficiency you try to put in a given supply chain, there will always be room for improvement. And in that purview, Government of India has been trying to help MSMEs answer some of these questions. For example, the Agni mission from Office of PSA that actively engages with small associations of MSMEs, which are not CIIs and PTs, to help understand value proposition and showcase innovative solutions to a wide network of MSMEs. Try to handhold and try to explain if it is important for them. Because at the end of the day, all you need is information that can help you make that decision. And if government can be that enabler, can be that facilitator, nothing like it, right? For an MSME, trusting anyone with the little amount of capital you have is very difficult. And if government can be enabling that, I don't think there is any other system that can play that big a role. At Niti Ayog, we do that for women entrepreneurs. We go to these tribal areas and rural areas where we handhold and help these women understand how to sell their products in digital platforms. So e-commerce, introducing e-commerce to them. So these are tools that they need there, but who helps them understand how to get on there? I think these are challenges that governments should be identifying and enabling MSMEs to.
Thank you. I think to sum it up, right information, helping them to make right decisions, which will help them to adapt. Yeah, I will now move on to Mr. Jacob, specifically to tap into the vast knowledge and experience he has in imports and exports. Mr. Jacob, it is said that exports is one way of expanding the MSME footprint. How does an MSME who has no export relevance in terms of the products or services they have to offer take advantage of the expanding export-import market space?
Good morning to you all. Thank you so much for your opportunity. However, the question is relevant. May not be MSME, may not be relevant. But the thing is that simply, I would like to answer for this is that I wish and I think that all the MSMEs who may not be relevant for the product, what they're doing, the services or the goods, what they're talking about, but yet they can tap this exports and import services, whatever, because now it's time of globalization. This growth of globalization is concerned, anything and everything is getting exchanged throughout the countries, other regions. Like, let us talk about some electronics, technologies, even our clothes, even our food is getting exchanged. Food is getting, tradition is getting exchanged between the countries, you know. So this is a big opportunity for MSMEs to tap and go into the business into for exports and imports, because now there is a myth in India that exports may be a big hard bottleneck or a big hardship, something like that, but it is no, because government of India is very as part of a very good schemes and policies for developing exports. And there is one thing called the AEO program, that is authorized economic operator programs, which are really supporting MSMEs, especially now because new policies, new amendments, new circulars has come to support especially MSMEs to do the exports, to enter into export market. And of course, people will talk about this called ECGCs are there, export credit guarantee committees are there, which are helping them for their the money to come out and without any problems for the exports. Coming back to the logistics pattern is concerned, I have in my what I have seen is this, government policies, government schemes are really supporting MSMEs. I also want to say about SEZs, small clusters, which where you can enter into that. May not be in a manufacturing unit, but it can do some trading, international trading. That is any goods for that matter. Whatever goods you think of, or you get any orders that are there abroad, take it, export it, import it, do some value-added services, which has been allowed in free trade warehousing zones, because WTO is also working for that, and then the free trade zones, free zones, which are called outside, these are now coming up like anything, and they are very promising. So, using these free trade warehousing zones that have been set up in India, I think I am very sure that MSMEs can come into this zone or sector and then do their exports and imports, because there is a big scope, and they need not talk about their work, what they're doing. That is correct, but they need not deviate their business or whatever it may be, because free trade zones are very helpful for them to do the trade, international trade easily. And the schemes that have been there is immense and very good, and people do not know. I think what I'm thinking is that MSME, the policies designed, the schemes that have been given in India by the Indian government, people are, it is not reached to the people, are not reached to the MSMEs. Those people are not taking that schemes, are not utilizing the schemes. So that's where the problem is. Because I'm seeing many, in my view, the AEO programming is very catchy and very beneficial for the people who can do. Because when you do imports, there is one scheme called direct port out. Like there is no inspection at all, and customs inspection is not being done. There are random checking of inspection, so you can cost control your logistics part, like demurrages, detentions of containers. So when the container comes to the port, you take it inside your place, and even after examination, you can pay the duties. And then there is one export consignment also to provide direct port in. That when you inspection is be done, you seal the container in your premises, take it to the port directly to the port, go to the customs place. Then documentation will be done just like that, and means and there is no container opening in the port to be directly loaded into the vessel. So what has happened? These schemes are very good for the MSMEs. I think, and I wish, yes, this is a good boon, I can say, the big boon that we got from the government to utilize MSMEs to enter into the exports and imports. I'm not talking only just about SEZs. I'm not talking just about AEUs. We have a lot of other schemes which are really promising for the MSMEs to tap into this business, even though it's relevant or not relevant, doesn't matter, because anything and everything can be exchanged now. That is a globalization which is now rapidly growing. And I think this is a big boon, and we have to tap this. And I wish, and I say that MSMEs have to do this. And if that has happened, then MSMEs will contribute more to our foreign exchange earnings to the country.
Thank you, Mr. Jacob. I take it as two input summary. There are several opportunities which are available, which MSMEs not seem to know. Second, that there is a series of baton exchange happen before the goods hit the ship. They don't need to be the final exporter or the importer, but they can fit somewhere in between and still make use of the opportunity. Thank you for that. Let me go for the next question to Mr. Amit. Mr. Amit, the one thing that MSMEs mention as the biggest bottleneck, not only today, in any time I've interacted with them, is that they say that we don't have money, we don't have finance. Is it real that financing options are still not easily available for MSMEs, or is there some other issue that we are actually grappling with? What is your take, Mr. Amit?
First of all, very good morning to you all, and thank you all for giving me an opportunity to be here. As your question is very rightly said, the finance is an issue. It was an issue, particularly for the MSMEs. Because I had been into credit since last 20-25 years and dealing with mid corporates and the SMEs. So what I have found is that during the late 2009 to 2015 period particularly, the funding was done, maybe it was done recklessly or whatever, but SME were being funded like anything. So it grew, SME funding was at a large extent, it was being done during that point of time. So might be because of indiscreet lending, number one. Number two, the funds being utilized by SMEs, not for the very purpose which it was required. And there were diversion of funds. And because of these factors, the NPA level in SME sector started increasing after post 2015. And thereafter, because of certain issues, now because of the COVID, there is a lot of stress under, particularly to the SME sector as such. So to counter this particular problem, because at that point of time when the appraisal was done by way of using the traditional methods, so the bankers were not having any of the bureau checks available or the checks which are available as of now, such as Pro 42, Corpository, your this CIBIL, CRILIC, CMR, so and so forth. So when we are looking about this digital way of checking the data, because the GST returns can be checked, your statement of accounts can be, previously it used to be checked manually. Now by using a software in the name of Perfuse, you can have the analysis of the bank statement, whether the funds are being used in the business or outside business, or related party transactions are there. So the things have become much more automated nowadays. So while taking, because the SME sector is particularly, as rightly said, is an unorganized sector. And the funds, once they get a lot of funds available, they use the funds also for the other purposes. So when the proposal comes to us, so we find lot of lacunas in SME proposals as on date. So, and that is on not because of the analysis part, it is because of the digital analysis which is being done. Because of the bureau checks being reported somewhere or some in other portal or other, they are making some defaults, or their GST is not telling, your transactions turnover in the account is not telling, your CMR is down. So all these problems create a lot of issues while sanctioning a SME proposal. So to mitigate this, because, and secondly, because a lot of NPAs have taken place during the last 4-5 years. So bankers, particularly in public sector, they have also become a little bit reluctant to fund SMEs. So what private sector bank, as rightly said by Vijay ji, private sector banks, they are growing at a much faster pace as compared to public sector bank. The reason is not that new greenfield projects are coming in. It is only because of the takeovers from the good accounts banking with public sector banks are being taken over by private sector banks by giving them a better pricing. So this is the main fact. So to counter it, what the government is giving the directions to the various banking sector as a whole is that we should go for this co-lending, because the outreach is more important to these SMEs. So to provide the funding, we have 2-3 options. Number one is the co-lending. So we had made certain tie-ups with MFIs and NBFCs, so that we can provide the co-lending activities to various SMEs, because we are good at processing, we are having funds, but maybe our outreach is not as good as the NBFCs are having, number one. Number two, they are having better mechanism for the recovery. Number three, their appraisal, because of these are the fintech companies, and we being a traditional bankers, so there is a gap between the traditional banker and the fintech company. So this will be the best collaboration between these two, and the appraisal part will take care of this. So under co-lending, we are moving ahead at a very faster pace, and we had made certain tie-ups also, to have a better outreach. And if we talk about the funding to SMEs, particularly because the small and micro and small, they constitute 97% of the portfolio. Medium enterprises hardly 5%, and once they improve, they go to the mid corporate or large corporate. So to provide the funding to these micro and small entrepreneurs, we are going for the digital lending. So under digital lending up to 5 crores, there will be no human intervention, and all the things will be taken, and end-to-end solution will be provided, and the appraisal will be done digitally only. We are making such algorithms so that the staff, number one, the benefit will be to the SME. They need not approach any of the middlemen, and they need not go to the branch again and again. They have to only upload. There will be a portal over there, and they will provide their basic data, and accordingly, PSB 59 is the best example. So we have also prepared our this algorithm, and according to that algorithm, this up to 5 crore loan can be sanctioned in principally immediately. So this will be a great relief to the MSME borrowers if they are the genuine borrowers and they get the sanction through PSB 59 or through the digital portal. The ultimate end-to-end, even the disbursement is also going to take place without the human intervention. This is our idea in the times to come. The third area, because if we talk about the PSB through digital lending, it caters to the borrowers who are already into the business, because the bureau checks and all these things, the statement of accounts will be taken care of only for the existing clients. So far as the new clients, we have opened 2025 startup branches, wherein the new concepts, wherein the borrowers are SMEs are coming up with, we are going to fund them. So as rightly said, the outreach for providing the financing facilities to the SME sector, it was a challenge, is a challenge, and to counter it, digitization is the only thing which can provide the benefit for this financial inclusion. So these are the 2-3 areas wherein we have started working upon. And we have seen because of this the Sierra module, which has been initiated in the banks, wherein the borrower who is interested, he can provide a missed call, he can send a SMS, he can contact our call center, he can directly apply through our website. So no middlemen are required, no direct approach to the bank is required. While sitting at the home, he can send the proposal immediately on the platform. He, under this PSB 59 portal, he can get yes whether he's eligible or not, and accordingly the outreach is increasing, and this is the part wherein the bank and the government is focusing upon. So we are sure that yes, in the times to come, by way of these 3-4 models, we will be outreaching our SME borrowers.
Thank you, Mr. Amit. What I see, which is one of the challenge, is the last mile connectivity. You are proposing that through digital aggregation model, which can make the money be available to the MSMEs faster. Thanks. We'll move to round 2, which we would like to keep it as a 2-minute round to all the panelists. In round 2, I'll start with the first question to Mr. Jacob. Mr. Jacob, based on your experience, is there a collaborative way in which MSMEs can work to tap into the export market with minimal structural changes, because many of them don't have the skill?
Yeah. See, MSME is moving, and then tapping the export market is as easy as a cakewalk. The thing is that now MSME, Ministry of MSME is set up with export permission councils. For every product, we have export permission councils where you can go and register yourself, and then you get a data for it. You have national resource councils, where centers where you can get a lot of data for exports and imports. So where these data which they give, ministries give, are the genuine data, and then where you can directly go and meet them and talk to them, and there are exhibitions, international exhibitions, international fairs are happening, product wise is happening, as well as the sector wise is happening, which is happening in India as well as outside India. But now digitally, now a lot of seminars, webinars are happening regarding the international fairs and all, where these people can participate there, go and talk to them about the products and get it done. And then these are the ways they can reach. And one more best way is that deemed exports. If they can go and talk, get engaged with the main exporters who are doing main manufacturers, you supply to them, you do the third party works, you also be a supporting manufacturers or some kind of things, where you will be called as a deemed export, there where the deemed exports happen. So on behalf of someone, you can do jobbing. Now there is a jobbing facilities is there available. And then you can do not only just jobbing, because you don't invest anything, everything comes here, you just do the jobbing work. So these jobbing works are available in India, because especially in leather, especially in electronics, especially in gems and jewelry, these are the sectors where you have a supporting manufactured activities, where you can participate on these things in these categories. And I think these are the way for them to enter into this market. And definitely, yes. And I again tell you about this government of India, which is giving us schemes and policies really good for these people. But I'm very much afraid why this MSMEs are not tapping this is a question. But I highly recommend these MSMEs to tap these type of markets, which are huge now. Because I'm seeing in the industry, many people, not just the big exporters or the big manufacturers are doing, but there is a scope for small scale players, who are doing it. Now many, even I'd say that household articles, house-made articles, small scale industries, people can participate in exports, because of the handicrafts, especially handicrafts. You have handicrafts, you have gems and jewelries. These are the places where small people, micro companies even can do exports. There is a scope, there is exhibitions, there are international fairs happening. And again, I can say about this SEZ clusters. SEZ clusters is one of the which we have to tap. Then being under SEZ, you have manufacturing, you have warehousing, free zones. You can utilize that. Even in free zones now, government is allowed to do a small processing works, like bring it, repacking it. Just bring something and repack it and sell it back in retail packing. So you make money in that. So this type of things where you have opportunity of import as well as an export. So you earn foreign exchange. So these are the ways. And there are not only export promotion councils. You have national resource centers, which is developed by the MSMEs, where you go get a lot of information about the exporters. Buyers abroad, or the supplies abroad. Both the things, imports and exports. So, in my view, yes, it is untapped market for MSMEs as far as exports is concerned. So, I recommend MSMEs to come out from the cocoon and then just talk about it. See, yes, there is a big market waiting for you. So you have to tap that. And tapping the market is very, very easy now. And it is not at all a hardship. It is very, very easy. And it is just like a cakewalk, because that is where the government and the policies and the organizations, associations have been set up. And they've available information is available readily. And I urge the people, MSMEs, to take this opportunity and enter into export markets, which will be a supporting to our country and for the development of our country.
Thank you, Mr. Jacob. I think what in short you're saying is there's a blue ocean waiting there for MSMEs to get into. But the next question is to Preeti Syal, ma'am. So what is the role of Niti Ayog in shaping the Industry 4.0 policy in India, and how would it impact MSMEs?
Thank you, Mr. Prakash, for that question. And thank you, Mr. Tully and Mr. Jacob, for very important and useful insights. I did not have all of that information with me, so I'm also learning. As far as this question is concerned, Industry 4.0 has evolved with all the different versions of industry, right? So 4.0 by itself talks about adoption of new technologies like artificial intelligence, data analytics, machine-to-machine communications, robotics, and what we call cyber physical or phygital. Basically assimilating more of technology into your way of working so that the boundaries kind of become blurry, and together both the technology and systems, physical systems as they exist, are able to efficiently produce the generated outcomes. But if you think about it, it took me approximately 30 seconds to explain what Industry 4.0 is. To further go into the details of that and understand how can technologies that are currently helping organize large-scale manufacturing be adapted or leveraged into small-scale industries is a very big challenge and a very big concept just to wrap your head around. Data security, reliability of data, stability in communication, transmission, all of these also pose a lot of challenges as far as the adoption of Industry 4.0 is concerned. So when Niti Ayog started looking into the area of Industry 4.0, we decided that the approach to take forward is staggered. Let's break down the technologies built into their individual components first, and look at how can we push for adoption of each of those individual elements. So we started with the AI in 2018. Where Niti Ayog released its national strategy for AI and tried to specifically focus on use cases. And there were small pilots run across India with small scale industries and small business players to be able to see if there is any value addition, or we are just trying to push our agenda. And it turned out there was an immense value addition, especially in secure data transfer and secure money transfer, like Mr. Tully, I think, has already mentioned. The secure money transfers were enormous, and it really helped them scale their own operations across the country. The numbers are gigantic, and Mr. Vijay had already opened the conversation with those numbers. But if you think about these key areas, of course, AI is one, machine learning is one, but then if I'm a small scale industry, my primary problem would be, how do I access these resources? How do I become technologically capable to be able to understand what is out there for me? And then finally, infrastructure by itself is a big challenge. So at Niti Ayog, what we're trying to do is, again, right, breaking them into these primary components, but also democratizing access to all of this. So we conceptualize these centers of excellence across country, and then special zones across country where you have shared technological resources that all of these small industries can have access to. And we saw a big impact in the COVID wave with especially Andhra Pradesh MedTech zone. Small scale players had access to these manufacturing 3D printers, and they were able to generate masks and a lot of other preventive kit related equipment for use in local hospitals, and it was amazing how all of these small scale industries came about, used these common resources, and churned really fast. So it was actually very impressive to see. So by itself, just putting a resource, which is a common area resource, having all the technological capabilities, that is a system and an ecosystem that is working really well. So advancing that, Niti Ayog has decided to come up with a digital capability center in India, where you will showcase use cases of these advanced technologies that will be done across sectors in different states, provide these as test bed for emerging innovations as government looks to transform the country's manufacturing sector. So the center itself is under progress. Hopefully you will probably hear in the news when it comes out.
Thank you. I think this question won't be complete till I ask the follow-through question to Mr. Amit. As part of 4.0, obviously the latest fads like blockchain, smart contracts, machine learning, AI, and things like that are going to be part of the chain. How do you see that, Mr. Amit, helping MSME to optimize their operations? What is your take on that?
Yeah. So far as SMEs are concerned, if I think myself as an entrepreneur, what I require from the bank, first thing is ease of availability of funds, and second is ease of operations. So ease of availability of funds, first I will take this. If I get the loan sanctioned digitally by using various technologies, latest technologies such as machine learning, AI, and so on and so forth. So if I get the funds immediately without any human intervention or without any delays, it is going to naturally, if I have projected ki, yes, my COD, that is commercial operation date of my unit is XYZ, so I will be able to achieve it. Otherwise, I will have to run pillar and post to get the loan sanctioned, get it disbursed, and it takes a lot of time. So because of the introduction of these technologies, if the loan is provided and we are providing, I can give you the examples such as pre-approved loans to the current account holders. We are, by using these technologies, by doing the data mining, we have already sent the list to the current account holders that, okay, we are ready to provide you so-and-so loan amount. You only come to the branch, get the document executed, because that has not been digitalized. So these type of loans is being done by using the latest technologies. So far as I take the example of the supply chain finance, once the loan has been sanctioned, the customer, by using his mobile or by using his computer app, he can download, he can upload his documents. The documents will automatically, if we talk about the ease of operation, this is a case of ease of operations, the documents will be uploaded, it will move to the bank will automatically, the machine will understand the document, accept it and disburse it. So without any human intervention, this end-to-end digitization process has already taken place so far as the sanctions are concerned and operations are concerned. Even in case of, we are having this trade forex back office operations at Gandhinagar. So what we are doing is, in case of the traders, they have to upload the bill at their mobile only. They need not go to the branch. They will upload the document will go to the Gandhinagar, they will see the document will be accepted and the payment will be automatically granted to their account. So this process is also started by using these technologies. So we are moving forward by using these various type of learnings, wherein we can provide the comfort and ease to our SME customers so that they can do this. Yeah, I would also like to tell that this blockchain infrastructure company has been formed by 11 banks, wherein this is a joint venture sort of thing, wherein equity has been bought by public sector and private sector banks. And the main idea of this blockchain infrastructure company is to revamp lending to the default prone small firms. And the main idea is, in this particular case, that the cut time, we have to cut the time in providing the supply chain financing. So first of all, the data digitization, this record digitization is the area which has to be taken care of. So we are talking about that the whole ecosystem under this blockchain can be covered, wherein the exporter, for example, puts it, when he has to send the export, the documents can be uploaded, DGFT can say it, transportation shipping company can say it, bank can fund it, and all these documents will be very much transparent, timely bound, without running pillar to post. These type of systems are likely, these are the ideas which have been generated, and the banks are working upon it, and we are likely to see this is going to happen in the times to come. So there will be a vast technological difference which we are going to see in maybe another 2 to 3 years. And thankfully, we all banks, even the public sector banks are also working upon it now.
Thank you, so Mr. Anil, do we have question round, one more round time available, or are we short on time?
That's what I'm saying. Output is what.
Can I just intervene?
Please, sir.
Mr. Prakash.
Please.
Mr. Tully had earlier raised the issue that, of course, there were reckless funding and all. There may be in some stray cases, and some stray cases you must have found something wrong. Must be. I'm not saying no on that, because few cases must have happened. But if you go by the statistics, earlier we were getting 12.4% funding before 2008. And after that, we are now getting only 8.3% funding of the total funding for MSME, which is lower. And the MSME growth, now you say the amount is there, but because of the growth of MSME, we are not able to fund them. Because of growth of MSME, the percentage should not matter, only the amount should matter. That is not correct. Because priority lending was 18%, and out of that we were getting 12.3, 12.4% earlier, till 2006, 7, 8. After that, it has reduced. And this I have raised in RBI board meeting also, that MSME advisory board meeting also. Besides that, we had asked, recently 1 lakh crore you had given. Out of that, what most of the banks have done, that you have hardly given us in hand 30%. If I have taken 100 rupees, you adjusted my previous loan, you adjusted my previous interest or overdue interest. So we have hardly got so much in hand. That needs to be seen. So I have nothing against banking. You have your own norms. You work according to your norms. But sir, little bit proactive and some more sympathy. I know large scale very well. And how you fund large scale also I know very well. And how they get money also is very. But that's all your lookout. We are not bothered about them. If they are even defaulters, they get the money and they pay the interest. That's all different thing. But in case of MSMEs, such soft corners are not taken into account. 2 stray cases your junior will bring, Sir, in this we have seen siphoning, or we have seen diversion, or we have seen whatever it is. If you see the number of cases, and then if you talk about sickness, see the amount of sickness in large and see the amount of sickness in MSME. The amount will be less. Figure of industry may be more. I have the 2,17,000 unit of 1999, 2000. I know when Mr. Narasimha Rao was there, we waived off all. Since then, I know the figures. So, sir, those figures also has to be seen. I have in all right earnest, some deviation, some soft corner for small scale is the need of the hour. This is just a request, and you need to support entrepreneurs. See, if you go by IBC and NCLT Act, they have suffered in that also. Nobody has made out of that. And this, I think, Payal Madam should also note that there is no provision that the MSME suppliers will be paid. Most of the cases settled, operational creditor and the suppliers have not been paid. Or in some cases, hardly 10% of the total amount. So they will become sick. They will become NPA. Because as a large industry, suppose I have not paid them, their amount is due for last 3 months, and I have gone to NCLT, finish. And NCLT case go for 2 years. So that amount also, are you funding those amounts to them? No. That was loan overdue. So that you adjusted and you not paid them. So 1 lakh crore you dispersed, but in fact, MSME has got only 30,000 crore. So these are just 2-3 points for your knowledge. Because of course, you can go by your figures, but these are my actual figures which I usually study with MSME. Although, because of my long association with MSME industry, they come to me also. So I talk to them and discuss. Because I feel every entrepreneur should be encouraged in right earnest. Thank you, sir. Sorry I interrupted.
Thank you, Mr. Vijay. Mr. Anil, can we go ahead with a couple of more questions, or are we running short of time?
No, sir. Should we take a few questions from the audience?
I have seen. Do you want me to shift to that, or do you?
Yeah, I will ask, sir. No problem.
Okay, sure, no problem.
The first question to Madam Preeti about the improving or enhancing the global competitiveness of the local MSMEs. A question is, what is the plan of action of Niti Ayog to enhance the global competitiveness of local MSMEs? This is particularly from the point of view of enhancing their participation in the global value chains.
Thank you for that question. I'm sure you have seen a lot of news around Niti Ayog propelling for increased investment in India, working closely with Invest India. And we also work closely with Startup India to bridge both the gaps because there has been an increase in foreign investors wanting to invest in India. And that is why Invest India and Startup India are together with help from, of course, Niti Ayog have been trying to come up with a single window clearance for all foreign investors. It's both ways, right? Of course, and there are businesses that do need that investment, but then foreign investment is not able to invest directly because there's no single window clearance at present. And there are the ease of doing business is also not great as far as foreign investments are concerned. So, so we are trying to address both of those gaps from both of those elements because there is an increased interest not only in the technology-based startups, but also local handicraft and local art. There is an increased interest in international market as far as those segments are concerned. So we have been trying to ensure that there is an ecosystem which enables both the ends. Let's hope something fruitful comes out of it, then we are able to review the numbers.
Thank you very much, ma'am. The next question, there are in fact a couple of questions for Mr. Tully. Sir, the one question is that the SME contributes 48% of the foreign exchange, but gets only 8% of the bank credit. And with this changing scenario, especially during the pandemic, would you list the plans to improve the credit flow?
Yeah, so far as this question is concerned, thank you very much for this question. SME contributes 48% of foreign exchange, true, but banks get only 8% credit. What is the change scenario now? So as I already submitted that wherein the export limits are to be provided, we are having a separate cell at our corporate office now. We have set up that cell wherein the export limits will be sanctioned on the priority basis. We are having two channels. One is the green channel and one is the normal channel. The green channel is the fast channel wherein the proposals related to the export funding as well as there's new products, there's new units, greenfield units may be sanctioned, because there should not be any delay by sanctioning the limits, because if there is a delay, it leads to the time run, leads to the cost overrun. So to prevent that, we have taken these steps. And so far as our this digitization is concerned, yes, up to 5 crores wherein the limits are required. Once the in principle approval is in place, immediately the final sanction takes place. So we are reducing the TAT so that it can be helpful to the entrepreneurs.
Thank you very much, sir. The next question again to you, sir. Can we know the any numbers in terms of SME loan growth target for Bank of Baroda?
Yeah, last year, see, there are three definitions related to our growth. One is definition related to the core SME growth, wherein we had grown by 16%. Second is the growth wherein regulatory and non-regulatory takes place. So therein we have grown by 11%. So during the current year also, for the core, it is 20%. And for the total SME growth, including regulatory and non-regulatory, it will be 11%. So last year, the mainly growth has been contributed because of the BGCL limits, which had been announced by the government. During this year, we are looking at the growth from the co-lending sector as well as digital lending sector. So these two areas we are focusing now, and the growth will be at the rate of 11% during the current fiscal year.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. The next question is to Mr. Jacob Kumar. Sir, is the free trade zone the right model for boosting exports for India? And what you would like to talk about the best practices that India can learn from countries like Mauritius, UAE, Thailand in transforming the free trade zones into a global hub for international trade?
Yeah, that's a nice question, sir. And yes, thank you for the question. Yes, it is. Free trade warehousing zones, yes, are a real platform to boost exports. And yes, in other countries like Jebel by Singapore, other countries, free trade warehousing zone, free zones have been successful and they're doing very well. And the same way, India is also pushing up now. And then now, free zones are very good for the foreign suppliers who are keeping the goods here. They're storing the goods here, and they do not find any customers in India. They'll take it back or they're exporting it back, something like that. The same way, exporters from India, what has happened is that even the buyer wanted to purchase goods and he don't want it right now. He can park his goods inside the free trade warehousing zone. But the export is concerned, he can move the goods from his factory to the free trade warehousing zone, and he completes his export process and he gets all his benefits, whatever physical exports have been done. For example, drawback or his money to come from the bank, everything he can process. He can finish his exports. But the goods going out of India is not physically will not happen. But even then, he is completing his export process. So it is good thing for him that immediately he gets his money and he gets his benefits also. So free trade warehousing zones are good now, and they are pushing a lot of customers for their export benefits is concerned. Because what happened is that free trade warehousing zones is giving a lot of benefits, like storing the goods without payment of duties, and even you can have a temporary removal of goods where you can exhibit your products for not without payment of duties, where you can have to bring it back within 90 days. There are many schemes like this. And earlier, yes, when they started in free trade warehousing zones, they were don't have any problem. You had some problems like drawbacks not coming and all. Now you can do your drawback. You can use your export authorization licenses. You can even use your export benefits, whatever benefits you have. So that license is part. Those things and all are very easy and been tagged in. So everything is good, and I think so. is now a complete package that is available in SEZs, especially in free trade warehousing zones. So I think and I feel, yes, the exports from FTWZ is a great hub, and it has to be tapped and that has to be utilized by the MSMEs or any other people in India.
Thank you very much, sir. My last question is to Mr. Prakash. Sir, your organization specializes in creating a turnaround strategy for small and medium sized companies. We have seen since last year there has been a lot of thrust on the digital technologies, especially for MSMEs with e-commerce and other things. So would you like to have some focus? Is the way forward e-commerce for the small companies? Will that be an effective tool to reach to the end consumer?
Yeah, it's really a valid question, but based on our experience, what we have seen, on one hand, we have the complete plethora of knowledge and digitization available. On the other hand, I still know of many MSMEs who don't even do their accounts on accounting package. They still are on sort of a hybrid system. They make vouchers and at the end of the month, they dump it on auditor. This is a fact of life on one hand. These are not small people. They do anywhere between 5 to 10 crores of turnover. The biggest gap that I see, Mr. Anil, is that when I work closely with an MSME, right from being the person who goes out on a sales call, to the person who makes the invoice, to the person who actually churns out the product, to the person who packages, who dispatches, it's almost a single man show, though they have 5-10 people around them. Many of the MSMEs find it hard to scale. When digitization is a very important asset which is available to them, the gap in knowledge. Last month, I did a seminar along with one of the leading magazines in South Delhi, which focuses on these kind of activities. We found that the gap in the knowledge of these digital assets itself is so huge. In fact, we showcased to them at least 10, 15 freeware tools with which, right from starting with a simple Google form, right up to some of the project management softwares which are freely available. They can actually do everything almost free of cost. But the challenge we feel, what we observed, at least with the lower end of the spectrum of the MSME, is their focus is more in terms of immediate revenue, in terms of getting the sales, getting the product out, reducing the inventory, reducing the receivables. And this chain hasn't much changed in the last 3 decades of my seeing them closely. The light is still there at the end of the tunnel, but it will need tremendous amount. Organizations like MSME Ministry, Niti Ayog must look at mass scaling and sharing and enabling these people to become literates, digitally speaking. If that happens, the digital divide can be shortened very fast. Today, many of them don't even know how to type or open a laptop and go to a website to browse. And I have seen RFPs hanging in a website for 20 days without responding. Can you imagine? That is the kind of gap. They put up a website, they get an RFP, they don't even respond. The gap is there. It needs to be, I would say, bridged as fast as possible. And that kind of scale, I think, is possible with a public-private kind of a partnership. If Niti Ayog and MSME Ministry comes forward, in fact, we, personally speaking, we have a chain of 100,000 consultants on board across India who are ready to go out and deploy this kind of thing. But that marriage will have to happen, but it is a possibility. Thanks for the question.
Thank you very much, sir. And with this, we concluded the question and answer session and request you to please give your concluding remarks.
Thank you. I hope all the participants from the MSME industry who are watching this right now or going to watch it later would have got quite a lot of information. Today, webinars, and hence MSMEs are also not sure which one to attend, which one not to attend. But this one has been one of a kind which has been reasonably well organized by the World Trade Center and all the other organizations which are behind this. Good amount of knowledge sharing from Mr. Vijay, who is the chairman of this board, Preeti Syal, Mr. Jacob, Mr. Amit Tully, and some very invigorating questions and answers which have come in. I always share it with many of the MSMEs that the gap between success is always between the knowledge and the ability to deep dive and do the things repeatedly. With MSMEs, I have picked up even 5 to 10 ideas out of this seminar. I at least have seen about 25 to 30 ideas which has emerged. If the participants go play back the video later, they'll get at least 25 to 30 very good ideas that they can execute. Take at least 3 or 4. Go ahead, execute it well. I am very sure that you'll start seeing some kind of a positive change. I would like to again thank the organizers for this wonderful initiative, and I hope that all the participants have got the worth for the time that they've spent on this initiative. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. I would request Kalantri sir to give the final vote of thanks.
I think Mr. Prakash has summed up, but I'm really grateful to all my speakers and moderator, Mr. Prakash, Mr. James, Mr. Amit Tully, Preeti Syal, and all other participants who participate in today's conference. Of course, MSME is a subject which is very large. Although they are small industries, but their issues are very different, and everybody has a different issue. You can't discuss all the issues at one fora, but it needs to be discussed well. Only one small suggestion to Madam Preeti, that of course there are various schemes of the government and everything, but more awareness is to be created. If you are going to rural areas or if you are going to non-metro areas, there the communication is poor, and the district officers don't much entertain people also. So I think the more awareness is created, you can't create awareness by media. This WhatsApp and all, okay, we metros and semi-metros, maybe looking at WhatsApp, social media or English newspapers. But our large population still different. Like
Mr. Anil, I think Mr. Vijay's connectivity lost.
Yes, looks like, sir. Let's wait for a couple of minutes.
We have a minute, maybe there is a question for Mr. Amit on the Q&A box. Which banks give loan to a new proprietor for manufacturing and exporting handicrafts? Pallavi Ingle has asked the question.
The question is, which are the banks? Sorry.
Which banks give loan to a new proprietor for manufacturing and exporting handicrafts?
Handicrafts. So regarding this question, all the public sector banks particularly, they are having a scheme for these artisans and handicraft people, and the area specific schemes are being prepared by almost all the banks, whether they are private or public. We are also having this scheme, we call it as ODOP, that was launched by government of UP, that is one district, one product. So regarding carpet or handicraft, we are having different products for different districts. So ODOP is the program, and recently we have digitalized also. So if any of the artisan or this carpet maker, handicraft maker, these type of people, they can immediately apply online, and the proposal will be taken care of digitally. So ODOP program is there, ODOP product is there with us, and we have prepared various area specific schemes also. Such as if we talk about the ceramics, we are having for Morbi, we are having a scheme. For Rajkot, non-ferrous metal ka scheme is there. For textile, we are covering Surat and this Tirupur area. So we are having approximately 27, 28 area specific schemes. So all the banks, regarding your question, all the banks are funding it. There is no demarcation that this bank is doing or this bank is not doing. So far as our bank is concerned, yes, we do have a scheme, and that can be approached by you digitally.
Okay, because the question looked like even for startups, the biggest challenge for them is always getting the collateral on the table. So I think that question was more from a startup perspective.
If we talk about from the startup side also, yes, we are having, as said, 20, 22, 20 some odd figure branches across the country, wherein we are funding to the startups, and that funding is not only in debt funding, but equity funding also. So we are providing some sort of equity, and there is a upper limit, there is a cap that up to 5 crores of the limit can be provided under these startups. So up to 2 crores, it will be covered under CGTSME. We will not be asking for any of the collaterals, and above 2 crores, yes, there will be a certain percentage of collateral.
Mr. Anil, do we have time for a question, or we wait for Mr. Vijay to come, or do we
1
close?
minute, sir, 1 minute.
I thought I'll take the time to pick the brain on Preeti Syal. In many of my interactions with MSMEs, one question which has come up is there has been SME exchange for SMEs. So many have asked, is there a way in which government is considering MSME exchanges for sub 5 to 10 lakh kind of placements through equity? This has come up on several forums. I thought maybe I'll ask you, or for you to think and process it later. SME exchanges work in a much larger footprint, whereas there is no official MSME placement stock exchange yet.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, right, internally there has been a lot of conversation around it, but also because it's technically falls under the ambit of ministry. But yes, it's a good thought maybe for something to internalize and maybe initiate the conversation offline.
So far as discounting of bills is concerned, we do have a trades platform wherein SMEs bills can be discounted. So the question here, what I understand is pertaining to the SMEs wherein the debt can be traded or equities can be traded. That has that there is no clarity about it. But yes, regarding the invoices, we do have trades, and many of the big corporates we are adding to it so that their SME suppliers, their vendors bills invoices can be discounted.
No, this question, yeah, Mr. Anil, are we back?
Yeah, there's some network issues, so he won't be joining. I would just like to take the one last question for Preeti Madam. There is a question about Honorable Minister Mr. Gadkari has called for the creation of rating system, and I thought this could be in continuation of what you were referring earlier. So the rating system and a dashboard for effective monitoring of MSME schemes. I mean, would you like, ma'am, to present the Niti Ayog's view, or how the government intends to take this forward?
So I think this came out a few days ago, right? This is very recent.
Right.
I think maybe a day or two ago. And when it did come out, I think the conversation, because by itself, it's a very innovative idea to be able to allow, again, investors to have this rating system of where to invest or how to invest. But creating any rating system or index by itself is, you have to ensure that it's not biased, and you have to ensure that there are proper weights assigned to factors that evaluate how an MSME is being rated, right? So by itself, the idea is neat, but if you were to really implement it, there is a lot of groundwork that needs to go in place. For example, like Niti Ayog does a lot of indices, right? We have our SDG indices, we have state health indices, but then all of them took a really long time to get to fruition. So by itself, it's a neat idea. If Niti Ayog would pick it up or ministry would pick it up, but I think that is still up for discussion. But yeah, it's a neat idea.
Right. So we will look forward to receiving more details on that. Kalanti sir has conveyed his apologies for this sudden technology issue, and I think we should conclude this webinar. With this note, thank you very much, everyone, to Mr. Prakash, to Madam Preeti, to Mr. Tully, to Mr. Anil Jacob Kumar. Thank you so much for joining, and look forward to continuing this discussion forward. As I remember Mr. Prakash was saying while answering to the last question, that there are thousands of consultants available who are ready to deploy and help MSMEs, and we would really look forward to creating a wonderful program jointly where the services can be extended to the MSMEs. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.